This is Erotic D. You listening to Conversations with Chad. I listen to Conversations with Chad. Hell, I have conversations with Chad. Peace.
Welcome to Conversations with Chad, where we talk to industry leaders in music, entertainment, sports, and business. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Chad. On today's episode, I'm sitting down with a producer who is now in his fourth decade in music, with his fingerprints on some definitive classic projects, such as Dr. Dre's The Chronic, and producing the D.O.C's cult classic, Helter Skelter. He has worked with several of the most iconic figures in music, including Dr. Dre, the D.O.C, N.W.A, emcee Breed, Eazy-E, Suge Knight, Snoop Dogg, Adina Howard, and others. Please welcome the one, the only, Erotic D. What's good, homie?
What's happening? That was a hell of an intro. I love that.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So we're going to get into the new shit, the King Shit album, but I want to kick this off talking about the late, great emcee Breed.
Let's do that, because I never get tired of talking about Breed.
That's what's up. So you produced the majority of the 1997 Flatline album with Ant Banks and Jazzy Faye each doing 2 tracks on there too to round it out. Tell me about working on that album and working with emcee Breed and the relationship you guys had together.
Okay, so that album, man, was finally work we finally did together after years of trying to figure out when and how we would work together. Ironically, Breed and I, Breed lived in Dallas for a while, but he never asked me to produce anything, and I was living in Dallas, and me and D.O.C were living in Dallas. So he was here a lot, but he never asked me to work with him until after I went to Atlanta and did Helter Skelter. So after we did Helter Skelter, while we were doing Helter Skelter, because we were all hanging at his house. Breed's house was like the place everybody went to hang out. He had a huge ass basement, video games. Everybody went over there and smoked and he cooked. Breed was an excellent cook. I don't know if people know that, but Breed was a fool in the kitchen. So he would cook a lot. And during all of that, people were hearing Helter Skelter, and he decided he finally wanted to work. He could finally hear how I could make a difference for him. Before that, I would do his show intros, like his show dates. He would, when he get ready to go out on tour or whatever, they would use me, because I used to like when you do your main song, I would remix it a little bit to make it more exciting for the crowd. So that was one of the ways I existed in the industry for a while, doing mixes for people and remixes for people. And then a time came where it was time to do Flatline, and Breed had asked me to do it, but he wanted to show love to Jazzy Faye, which a lot of people don't know. Me and Jazzy Faye used to run every day. There was a point where Jazzy Faye was pretty much following my lead for a while. There was talks for Jazzy Faye to be under E-World before he went and did his, did the Flatline record with us. After we did Flatline, he started getting more production jobs. I started turning down more production jobs. But as we did Flatline, Breed was coming to Dallas to do it. We didn't actually do that record in Atlanta. We did it in Dallas. And one thing people don't really know is that almost every song that I produced on that record, I would say about 50% of the songs on there, I actually penned those lyrics for Breed too. And Doc penned some. Yeah, we were all like brothers, so Breed didn't feel any kind of way about letting me or D.O.C pen lyrics for him, and he was penning lyrics for other artists like Too Short and people like that. So I just have a knack for, like, when I produce a track, I know what I want to hear on it, and I'm a fast worker, so I produce a track, and as soon as I get the basic track together, I start writing the song. So that's what I was doing before Breed would even make it to the studio. I would had the track made, and then I would be then wrote some lyrics and recorded them motherfuckers. So Breed would uh, love it and be like, I'm gonna just say the whole song. So like the Floating Through the Cosmos song, that's why at the beginning, me and Breed are going back and forth in the intro because I had actually, the intro was even actually me. And we just broke it up where it sounded like me and Breed were talking to each other, and then what Breed was rapping, I had written that. Do Shot, for example, that record, I did the track and I wanted to rap on it. So my parts that are on there, my two verses, I wrote those first, and then Breed wrote his part once he came into the studio, and we kept it on the record like that. The song, The Amazing Grace House with Dear Lord. Oh my God, I love that. Actually,
Yeah.
that was my first song I ever played bass on. That's me playing the bass guitar on Dear Lord, and the guy that's singing the chorus was a homie from here around town, and he was in the studio with me, and we just, Breed came in with the idea, and I brought in this guy to sing the chorus, and I think about Breed. I think about that song a lot when I think about Breed because of the things he was saying in the record. So we start seeing Flatline coming together and being a record that doesn't sound like any other record in Breed's catalog. So that made Breed want to keep me working on the record. The records that he ended up doing with Jazzy Faye and Ant Banks, I feel like those records were more either because he had them when we started working, or because all of us are just tight like that, and he just had to do a record with those dudes. Like, I love Ant Banks. That's like another brother to me. Jazzy Faye is like a brother to me. So we all kind of got used to running into each other on different projects. But at that time, I was kind of the hot guy dealing with the D.O.C. record. So a lot of people wanted to get as much work out of me as they could, and I think that's what happened on Flatline. Plus, I'm an efficient worker. Like, you can come in and have whole songs already done, because I started out as a rapper, and then I started producing. So I'm kind of even-handed with all of that. And Flatline just came together organically. Just what song was that? The song about Mary Jane, about the weed. What did we call that song? We changed the titles of the songs before we put them out. We have working titles, and then we come up with solid titles. But there was a song number 2 on the album, I think.
Was that the song My Dove?
My Dove. D.O.C. wrote that one.
Okay.
And,
yeah, I was going to ask you about that and explain because that's one of my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah.
I was going to see if you could explain the process of putting that particular record together.
Yeah. So when it's funny because I put together one track song, Helter Skelter. I used a live drummer from Atlanta named Nick Williams, and there was every now and then, and when I went back to Texas, every now and then I would fly him in for a week, and all we would do for the whole week is record drums. We wouldn't produce anything. We just record drums so I could send him back to Atlanta, and now I got a whole new set of live drum samples or loops, not loops or samples. They were actually like he would play the entire time. I'd never looped him, but that song started like that. It was a raw drum beat that I had flown Nick in to play, and then I did a track on it, and Breed heard it, and he asked Doc to write to it. Once Doc wrote the song, I changed the music. So the original music that Doc wrote to was something a little more basic than My Dove. But after I heard the lyrics, it inspired me to write music that went with it. So then that group that sang the chorus, that was a group that was signed to E-World. And when I heard Doc singing, when I heard the chorus, not the chorus, but the subject matter, and we named it My Dove, I just brought my group in, and they wrote a hook that I felt like fit, and we just recorded. I don't even think those guys even really had a conversation with Breed. One of them may have, but not the group. That's how quick I be having in and out. And Breed and Doc are like They really like brothers, so they were always hanging out. And at that time, I wasn't a go out to the club kind of guy. So while they're at the club, I'm at the studio putting Flatline together. That's literally how it was. That's how Helter Skelter came together too. They were all out at the club all the time. I'm in the studio for like 8 to 10 hours a night with my various players that I bring in and out. And so the records just come together, and then the guys come in and put their voices where they need to go. That's how Flatline went.
Okay.
And I think that's why it's the most different sounding record for Breed, because Breed actually gave me control of the record, just like Doc did with Helter Skelter.
Okay. Now, one of my other favorite joints off that album is Gorilla Pimpin'.
Yeah.
Tell me the story with that song, because that was also the same song that appeared on the D.O.C's D.O.C project in 2003, except that Dr. Dre had added some vocals in there.
Yeah, so that was an interesting situation, because when we did Gorilla Pimpin', again, D.O.C wrote those lyrics. So when we did it, we were kind of like in one state of mind. The original was in a state of mind that, we're gonna keep this, we got to get this record out, we got to get it turned in. So we didn't get to flesh it out the way we really wanted to. And I really believe we all felt like Breed did a great performance. It was actually a single. I don't know if you know that, but it was a single off Flatline. And we felt like John Abbey and Ichiban didn't do much to bring light to the record. So when it was time to do 6-2's record, which 6-2 was signed to me, I brought 6-2 to the table. The world thinks that Doc brought 6-2 to the table, but 6-2 was signed to me while we were doing Helter Skelter. And I was just grooming him until, I would tell him all the time, I'm gonna let Dre put you on, I'm gonna let Dre put you on. And so Gorilla Pimpin' was one of the first things they did together. 6-2 didn't really want to do those lyrics because he didn't write them. So he was really uncomfortable with doing them. Like, he was kicking and screaming. And then when Dre loved the song so much, he asked to do the hook. So Dre is doing the same hook D.O.C was doing for Breed for 6-2's version. And so the Doc felt like those were lyrics that he wanted the world to hear. That was a beat that he wanted to hear when he wanted the world to hear. When Dre heard the beat, Dre was like, this shit is bananas. I want to do the hook. So that's how that came along. And then, of course, it ended up on D.O.C because Doc and Dre had one of their classic riffs where, they wouldn't talk to each other for a while. So that's how that was actually done to be an aftermath 6-2 project. And then it reverted to being a D.O.C record.
Oh, okay. Now, moving gears and switching gears for a minute, I want to get into your newest album, King Shit.
Yes.
What is the significance of such a bold title?
The significance of that is it's so deep, and I'm so serious about that title, because when you think about it, man, you've been knowing me now for almost maybe 15 years, or more.
Yep.
Right. So you've seen me, and you knew of me before that. So you've watched me put out music, and high quality music, in every decade, every era. I have never not put out music. The people that I'm known to work with don't put out music in every decade, and when they do, I'm involved with that music. And that's the same for here at home. I'm the last of a dying breed here in Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm the only person here that can say he put out music in every decade and stayed pretty much relevant to people who matter within the music industry. I ain't never had to go and clock in nowhere. I ain't never had to go get a job for anybody. E-World is a thriving business, and my other businesses are thriving.
Yeah, that's what's up. So you have a single, The Golden Chopper 2, which is actually a follow-up from the Golden Chopper that was on the Flowers Before I Die album. Why do a Golden Chopper 2 and lead your new album off with that?
Because I did have a different single planned called I Am, and this probably gonna be the follow up single now. But when I was waiting on the hook to be recorded or written and recorded, I was trying to give a new artist a chance to show up on this record because I'm sure I'm fixing to push this record where where everybody fucking gets it and loves it. I'm still working it, and I just felt like she would have been a great addition if she'd have come with the right hook. So in waiting on her, I did Golden Chopper, and I was like, oh hell no! Automatically, I was like, this shit is the kingest of all king shit that I can't do a record on a song on this album that states king shit better than this. So I got the lyrics, got the vocals and the delivery perfect in my eyes, and I just felt like any song that I had to that point was beneath it, or it was a different kind of message than I wanted to sing, because I love every song on the album, but they all have their own reasons that I did them and their own flavor. And I felt like this record, Golden Chopper 2, was the best representation of how I wanted you to be prepared to listen to this album. And I just saw the video, I saw the opportunity for me to link the original Golden Chopper video in some kind of way to From Flowers Before I Died to transitioning into King shit. And then it gave me the vision to do a Golden Chopper 3 for the next record. So it just opened up a whole lot of ideas for me that made it make sense to me, because I think that with this record, I can remind people that I'm hip-hop first and an insane producer at the same time. So that's why I did that one.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, what I think is beyond cool about this album is that it features your son, Everyday Tony.
Yes.
Tell me about working with him, producing him, and watching him learn and grow in this business. I mean, I gotta imagine it makes you, a proud dad to see him follow in your footsteps.
Yeah. So before Tony, Tony's older, but I have a 28-year-old son who actually grew up in the studio while I was doing all those aforementioned records, the D.O.Cs and the Gorilla Pimpins and the Dr. Dre's and all that. So my son, named Reason, I dropped an album on him first. He was actually on Flowers Before I Die before Tony came into the mix to rap with us. So I was already a proud dad, because I produced and dropped a full album on my son Reason in 2019, right towards the end of 2019. And then Tony came next. We did Crimes and Good Food. And working with them, my two sons, is the proudest thing. They're heavily involved in my records now, where, just as I'm heavily involved in their records, I don't really work on my albums without them being involved. Tony is definitely more involved than Reason, because Reason is kind of like our Andre 3000, our Kendrick Lamar. His approach to music and lyrics is not like ours. It's a little bit more esoteric. It's a little bit deeper, a little bit more metaphoric and melodic. And sometimes that doesn't fit on the kind of projects I'm doing. So as a father, I'm proud to have a son that's got his own mind and his own direction, and I do produce his music to fit his style. We're actually working on a new EP for him right now to be out shortly. So with Everyday Tony, he's more like the street rap type rapper. So he fits perfectly in rapping alongside me. And, if you hear sing-songy or melodic choruses on my record, that's my other son. That's Reason. So, for example, on my good side, on King shit, Everyday Tony wrote my lyrics. I made that.
Okay.
I made that a father-son situation. So Everyday Tony wrote my lyrics, and my other son, Reason, did the hook for me. I just want to make sure they got involved and I can get them some publishing So Reason wrote and performed the hook, and Everyday Tony wrote my lyrics, and then we wrote about my other two children on that song. Like, it opens up talking about my two younger children. So that opens up the door for my third son. We call him the Young Dragon, Levi the Young Dragon. We're working on his new album right now. His first single comes out March 9th. So having all of them involved with King shit was paramount to me, and I think that's another thing that made the album feel as big as it feels. That I was in a great place seeing my sons every day in the studio.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, that's really like a family affair right there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's dope. So switching gears a little bit, I want to go back to how you initially kind of connected with Dr. Dre and kind of began your all's working relationship over the years.
Yeah, that's a great story, man, that I had to really tell on a big platform one day. So me and Doc, D.O.C, and Erykah Badu, and all of us, we grew up in the same area, not in the same part of the city, but in Dallas Fort Worth. We all knew each other. We all would be loving on each other and being close to each other with supporting each other with the music. The day came that D.O.C got into this group called the Feeling Fresh Crew with a DJ here named Dr. Rock. Dr. Rock used to be in the World Class Wrecking Crew, and Dre took his place. So he knew Dre took his place when he came here to get on the radio. So that was the original Dre connection for D.O.C. Because when Feeling Fresh Crew got on the Compton, what was that Ruthless had done the N.W.A. and the Posse compilation. So Feeling Fresh Crew showed up on that. That was because Dre and this Dr. Rock were cool, and Dr. Rock had a record label here. Well, Dr. Rock was on Macola, Eazy-E and them were on Macola. The group that I had local hits here with, we were all on Macola. So that to me was the universe setting this whole shit up from Jump Street, because what are the chances that all of us didn't even know each other at first, but we all have the same distributor on the West Coast. So so we'd all have to go pick up our records and all of that, and we'd see each other. Well, I started out as a rapper, but I mean a DJ before I started rapping. I'm more from a DJ to a rapper to a producer. So in my DJ days, I was super popular too. I was like a king in the DJing thing, but Dr. Rock was king in the city because he had a radio station. He was on the radio every Saturday night. He brought scratching to Dallas, and he was cold at it. Well, me being a little 13, 14-year-old cold-blooded ass DJ myself, Dr. Rock used to let me DJ parties with him, radio parties. Like I was this little kid DJing on the radio, like at swim parties and, skating rink parties and shit like that. Well, when they got on, they had hit records. I had hit records here. When they got on with Eazy and them, they fell out. Doc and Dr. Rock, they fell out, and Doc went on to L.A. and the rest was history for him. Well, he came back and said, I think you should be in L.A. with us. He came to my studio in Fort Worth. I'll never forget it. He still had his voice and everything. This was before the records started rolling, but he came back and he said, you should be in L.A. We can use you up there because nobody makes music like you. We need you up there. I'm going to come back and get you at such and such date. And he wanted my whole group because he wanted the female rapper, Miss Allen, as well. That was the centerpiece of my group. I was writing and producing her and DJing for her, and we were making noise around town. So that caught Doc's attention way out in LA. He came back and asked us to come up there. Well, he didn't show back up. So here's where the story gets muddy for people. They think that Doc put me on with Dre. But Doc never showed back up after he said, I'm coming back to get you guys. Before he came back, we had already put the energy in the universe. Before he came the first time, we had already put the energy in the universe that we were going to go and fuck with Dre and Eazy. That's what we were working for. And it just so happens that the universe sent D.O.C. initially to show us that we were getting there. Well, when Doc didn't come back, we just decided we were going to strike out and go to LA on our own, and we were going to go to the same. We had studied the records. We knew what a studio was that Eazy and them used. We had been hustling, so we had money. So we were going to book time at that same studio and just be there when them niggas get there. Just so happened, the night we were pulling out, Suge Knight had sent some more guys here to get us. Doc had talked enough about us that Suge decided, I want to manage the motherfuckers. Like, he wasn't managing people yet. We were one of the first groups he started managing, us and DJ Quick. So when I first got to LA, Suge Knight was the first person I saw, because on the way to driving there, we're coordinating the drive with Suge, and he telling us where to come to and all that. I probably didn't see Doc for the first week I was at that motherfucker. But,
oh man,
yeah, so Suge brought us in. Suge listened to my plans. He watched me work. He loved how I worked. And when I told him, here's the records we want to do, but I want to work with Dr. Dre on some of this stuff that he's doing, and I want him to get behind us on this record. Suge took me directly to Brian Turner and let me have that talk with Brian Turner. Back then, Suge didn't do a whole lot of talking on the artist's behalf. Suge would put you in front of the motherfuckers you want to be in front of. That's how I got put on. Suge didn't have to talk for me. Suge let me talk for myself. And he just backed me up. He just made sure that whatever I wanted had the action behind it in LA, because he's got the connections. So he took me to Brian Turner. Brian Turner signed me and my group that day. The first day we went to see Brian Turner, he pulled out contracts. We didn't even have no fucking lawyers. We signed this shit.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it was a crazy deal. Unlimited budget, all that, because he was like, I want you to get with Dr. Dre. Now here's how I started working with Dre. It wasn't Doc. It wasn't Suge. It was Brian Turner who said, I need, before we can get to your group's album, I need you to help Dr. Dre finish N.W.A.'s second album, because he's a year behind. And in return, in exchange for that, I'm going to give your group, the first ever unlimited budget we've ever given out. Because you and Dr. Dre working together is a no-brainer. And if you guys finish that N.W.A. record and get onto this record, I know this record is going to be crazy. So, because I want you to take your time, you guys can go ahead and go in the studio now. So Brian Turner had the studio set up where Dre and N.W.A. were in the studio, and then my group came in right after them to work with Dre. So, of course, there was overlap. I would be in there working with Dre before my group started working. So it was Brian Turner that put me and Dre together. Nobody else. Suge put me in front of Brian Turner to make it happen.
Okay, I got you. And so then, later on down the road, Dre and Eazy split. You went with D.O.C. and Dre over to Death Row.
Yeah.
In other interviews that I've read with you, you said that you were working with Dre on the Chronic before Snoop and them really kind of showed up initially.
Yeah.
So what direction was the album originally going in before like Snoop and Warren and RBX came on board?
It was probably going in the same direction, and that's why they were brought in. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, Dre. Okay, so the one thing that people got to understand about Dre is this, and I think that every great producer, including myself, is the same way. If you come around that motherfucker and you got skills on a pen and pad, then we want you to write some shit right there. And that's how that happened. Them kids started coming in. I remember I was in Texas on vacation when Snoop was brought in, and Suge had Snoop call me up and freestyle for me on the phone and say, what do you think, dude? Should we put him on? You know what I'm saying? That's how involved I was with that, especially from Suge's standpoint. As far as Suge was concerned, he was trying to get Dre, but he had me. So he was like, what do you think? Should we put him on? I was like, yeah. I mean, hell yeah, you should put him on. And, you know, of course, with that came all the other guys. And when you have so many artists in the studio at your disposal, it just naturally morphs into something like what the Chronic did. Dre wasn't that keen on being a solo rapper at the time. So that fit him perfectly, where he could get bars off, but the album didn't have to be focused on just him.
Right. Okay. Now, and then eventually the D.O.C. leaves Death Row Records and links back up with you for the Helter Skelter project.
Yeah.
And that project was also the working title of the much talked about Ice Cube and Dr. Dre collaboration album.
I couldn't fucking believe
it. So tell me about putting that project together with D.O.C. in the aftermath of him leaving Death Row and the fact that Dre and Cube had been kind of promoting this record with the same title.
All right, so when I was in Texas producing I think at that time I was doing Adina Howard. I had worked with Tupac on some things. I was working with some new acts that were brought to me by power players in LA. They needed me to help them produce these kids, to get them deals and shit. So I was picking up big ass checks, doing shit like that. D.O.C. hit me up out of the blue and was like, I'm in Atlanta. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't even know how this nigga got my phone number. It was a landline, you know, it wasn't no cell phone. Beeper, he didn't even beat me. He called me at my house. And he was like, I'm working on a new album and I want you to do it. Now, at that time, I was known to have a producer partner, but everybody knew I was the one doing the music. You know, it's kind of like Dre used to keep Yella in the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had my own DJ Yella type dude. He was like a brother to me. So we started this thing together, and I felt like we should have ended it together. But him and Doc, he was in LA too. You just never hear about him. He was in LA, part of my whole genesis with these guys. But him and D.O.C. didn't see eye to eye on some things. So when Doc called me to do Helter Skelter, he said a mouthful without saying much, and that was, when I say I need you to do my album, I'm saying I need you to do my album. He was basically like, leave your boy behind. So that put me in a position where I had to think, you know, I'm married, I got a newborn son, like new as fuck, the 28-year-old Reason right now. And I'm like, I got to decide between loyalty to these streets and loyalty to my wife and kid. And I chose, hey, I had to sit my boy down, like, Doc don't want you to be a part of his album. We were hustling hard as hell anyway, and he was a superstar in the drug game, so he was okay with that shit. He was like, shit, I'll just stay here and hold our shit down. And then we'll be behind, we'll have your back when you come back. Because we could have had our own version of Death Row No Limit. We had that kind of action around here. So he stayed to hold that down, and I would, of course, he would fly back and forth to hang out with me, or I'd fly home to hang out with him, because we were like brothers. We slept in the same bed during our hustle days before we got down with Dre. Man, we slept, him at one end of the bed, me at the other end of the bed. And with the drum machine right there next to the bed. So I wasn't gonna just abandon dude, but I had to go out there and get it for my family. And so I had to. That was the first time I ever had to kind of prove that I could get something done with a record label. So, you know, the album was on Giant Records, but Warner Brothers was cutting the check. So I had to come. They didn't know me at the time, because I had been back in Texas for a number of years and wasn't on the LA scene a whole lot over that couple of years. So Warner Brothers was like, if we're gonna trust this dude with $1 million budget, we need to hear what he got. So my boy, rest in peace, Wes Crockett, was the one that orchestrated the deal for Doc, and then he brought me in, made Warner Brothers break me off $75,000 to just say that I was gonna do it. And then I had to put a demo together of beats. I put this elaborate ass demo together though, and went up there and played that shit for them people, and they were like, okay, we got you, and we're gonna pay you X amount of dollars. It was the most money I had got for fucking just saying I was gonna do a record and just being in the studio I had ever gotten up to that point. Dre paid well these days, but he couldn't pay back in the day. So uh, when we started Helter Skelter, it was agreed that we would do it in Atlanta, and we would do it um, in 5 nights a week, 12 hours a night. So I would go in the studio at 8 o'clock at night and stay until 8 o'clock in the morning. We had the studio locked out for that amount of time for 14 months. And while we were doing that record, man, a whole lot of crazy shit would happen. When he told me that it was going to be called Helter Skelter, I was like, okay, what the fuck? And then when he started bringing me tracks, reels that he had gotten from Dre, the first story I got was these were songs I was writing for Dre. And then soon after that, it was a joke. I took these from that nigga. You know what I'm saying? And I was uneasy because now I'm working on music that's not mine.
Right.
And I was like, I don't really want to do this. Even Return of the Living Dead, you see that I added more music to it because I just couldn't see me, putting out a record that I didn't do, saying produced by Erotic D. Now, that's how we got the deal with Giant Records, doing that demo of Return of the Living Dead. So he had that recorded before I came along. But for me to fuck with it and want to be a part of the project, I told him I had to touch it and add more music, make it up to date or whatever. So he allowed me to do that. And so because we knew that was going to be the first single, that was always the motivation for doing the album, to center it around him coming back and reminding people that he was the one that did that record. So the Hereafter that ended up on Helter Skelter was not the original Hereafter. It was a Dr. Dre record, and Dre put an injunction on that album and had everything taken off that he was going to produce. So we did For My Dogs, and he was dissing Dre and all that. I just looked at it like that was, and Ruthless to Death Row when he dissed all of them. I'm still cool with everybody. I still loved everybody he was talking about, but at the end of the day, it was hip hop, and you have to let an artist that you're producing express themselves however they're going to express themselves. And I didn't think anybody would take it like I promoted that shit. And I was right. Nobody blamed me for anything that Doc said or did in that process. Dre, when he first did an interview on it, he said that nigga should have took them dope ass tracks and gave them to another artist instead of putting his voice on it. So that was the only feedback that was being said about my music. Nobody was catching me up in whatever beef they may have with Doc.
Yeah. So the Hereafter was originally a Dre record. Was that the only one on the record that was?
Secret Plan was a Dre record, and I changed that up, and so yeah, Secret Plan and the Hereafter were the only two that were going to be from the original Helter Skelter, and then so we totally changed the music to the Hereafter, and I put so much music on top of. The Hereafter, and I put so much more music on top of Secret Plan that you probably wouldn't even notice that was what that originally was.
Right. So you were already in Atlanta, so you didn't have any, you weren't privy to any excerpts from the original Helter Skelter with Dre.
Yeah, I was always cool with Dre. I was always good with Dre. I could go work with Dre tomorrow if I wanted to. I'm always good with Dre. So yeah, I'd heard a few things, and to me it was a dope ass record, but I kind of felt like being privy to some of the information that I was and seeing some of the things I saw away from the project, I kind of knew it wasn't going to come out, right? Because I felt like in that situation, what I was seeing was there were two bosses who needed it to be seen that they were bosses. And I just didn't see that working out. I didn't see Cube wanting to play backseat to Dre and vice versa. Even if they were going to do the record together, you had to figure out what label that shit gonna be on.
Yeah.
I think one of them kind of things. What I surmised when I was around, I saw happening.
Okay. Now we spoke for an interview with D.O.C and N several years ago. I think this was back in like 2008, maybe. And I was wondering what happened to the song "Dear Diary" that you submitted to Dre for Detox. That didn't end up being "Talking to My Diary" from Compton, did it?
No. Dear Diary is way different. Matter of fact, I'm gonna dig up a copy of it. I hope I have a copy. I'm wondering the same thing as you, and I'm wondering why. I mean, I'm wondering what happened to it. Just like you, it's in that vault. I mean, I gave him a lot of records, but Dear Diary was so special to me that it was the first. It was supposed to be the first single from my own album, Black Bruce Willis, and I sold it to Dre because Dre really had to have it. And he told, the way he got it, he was like, the white boy gonna write it. He was talking about Eminem. The white boy gonna write it, so the publishing gonna be crazy on it and all of that. So at the same time though, I'm a producer first. So like my music, my personal songs are for sale until I put them out. So I don't get attached to records where I can't make money off of them, and Dre paid top dollar for that motherfucker. So no, it was not a sample. There was a sample in it, but the music around the sample was all original, and that shit is fucking bananas. And I couldn't believe that he picked that version of a diary over the version of a diary that he got from me. But much love to the homie Chocolate. That's my nigga. I mean, he from Dallas too. So that's the homie that produced that. He been in LA for a long time. I'm pretty sure people think he from LA by now, but he a Dallasite. So I certainly am not hating. My nigga got him a Grammy or an Oscar for that shit, whatever he got. So, and we are still in contact too. Bless him. He just lost his mother not too long ago here in Dallas. That's the last time I talked to him when he was here. So that diary he still did a diary record from a Dallas producer. So I'm good.
Yeah, that's what's up. So, what's next for Erotic D? Like I know, there's some things in the mix with like you and D.O.C.
Yes.
Stuff like that. Speak on that a little bit if you would.
Well, you are my guy. I tell you things that I don't tell other people, so I'm gonna share with your audience that D.O.C and I are definitely working on a new album. It's we've been kicking around certain titles, which I don't know if I should repeat because I don't know if that's gonna be the title.
Okay.
So I don't want to say one thing, then Doc hears this or reads this because y'all are cool too. I don't want Doc to hear this or read it or whatever and be like, now I can't use the title because you let it out.
Right.
So I'm not going to say the title, but we are working. We also have been shooting a documentary. First time I'm going to say it out of my mouth. Been shooting a documentary on Doc's life. It's been the same production company that shot the Michael Jordan documentary. What is that documentary called? The one that just came out?
The Last Dance.
That one. They were actually winning their Emmy Awards for it while they were shooting Doc's documentary. And in that I tell some pretty cool stories. It's a real documentary where Doc invited everybody to talk openly about him, and it's not all good. So it's a real documentary. It's not no fluff shit.
Yeah. Okay.
And anybody, I ain't, without me saying names, anybody you wonder if they're in there, yes. They're
okay.
They're all in there.
So when you say that, I'm assuming you're talking like Dre and yourself and people like that.
Everybody from the Chronic.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So and everybody from the beginning. He did a solid. Like Dallas is in that motherfucker too. So
nice. Well, it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we shot that during COVID, so we had, that's going to be one of my weirdest memories, having to walk around that set with masks on and all that until it's time to get interviewed and all that shit. That production team is really insane. I think they did the Warren G documentary as well.
Oh, the G-Funk documentary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's the same team. Me and Doc have a few other things. And so with that documentary, I am doing the score and the soundtrack album that's coming along with it. We have a couple of songs already featuring some of those people from the Chronic that we've already recorded.
So is that separate from the other album you guys are also doing?
I don't know now. Doc done changed up so much shit. Like, first the album was just the album. Then the album was the album that accompanied the documentary. And then he went and did some things in Australia that since he ain't told me yet, tell everybody, I ain't gonna tell everybody. But he went and did some things in Australia, and then he came back and was like, my voice was pretty cool during that shit I was doing, so I am serious about doing an album now. But he didn't mention the documentary, so I'm just fucking lost. I'm just an assassin. I'm just a hitman. I'm gonna go in the studio and do what I do.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Man, Erotic D, man, it's been great talking to you. I always enjoy catching up with you, having our conversations. Really appreciate you jumping on conversations with Chad. And, man, keep in touch with us. And, we'll check back with you soon.
Already, man. Can I say one last thing?
Sure.
Make sure, I'm talking to you, the audience, make sure you go and get my new album, King Shit, on all platforms. My son, Reason, spelled R-E-Z-E-N. His album is called Romantics, R-O-A-M-A-N-T-I-C-S, produced by me. And then my other son, Everyday Tony, his album's called Crimes and Good Food. That's also produced by me. March 9th, get my youngest son, the Young Dragon. His first single is going to be called I Wanna Be. But don't think you're going to be getting no kiddie shit. It's a kid rapping over the same kind of beats I sell to everybody in the industry. So his shit is humming. I swear to God. he got some of the best production I done in the last few years on his album coming up. So so I just want everybody to be looking for him and to go and grab my other son's stuff, even if you just stream it. And stream that King shit, because it's crazy.
And that concludes this episode of the Conversations with Chad podcast. Be sure to check us out at chadkaiser.com. We'll be back soon. Thanks for listening.